Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Networking with Nathaniel. I am pleased to have a friend of mine, Thomas O'Brien, here for episode 12. A husband, father of three lovely kids, and full-time real estate investor, and um, getting into the mentor kind of game for first responders. So if you're out there listening and you want to kind of get a mentor under your wing or to put them under your wing, Thomas might be the guy. Listen in and see what all experience he has. Thomas, thank you for being here, man. It's I've known you for a little while now. We have
Yeah,
yet to do a deal together, unfortunately. The ones that we've worked on haven't worked out, but that's the way it goes, right?
yeah. I have a feeling we'll get there, man. And
I
thanks
do
for
too.
having me, dude.
Yeah.
This is my favorite thing to do. People ask me all the time what I do for work, and I just say I just talk to people all day.
Yeah, TTP, right?
Legit.
Well, tell me, what kind of keeps you busy on a day-to-day, basis at the moment, and that can kind of be our jumping off point to talk about what you're doing and what you got going on for the future.
What keeps me busy day to day? In all honesty, man, I think what I love most about entrepreneurship is the ability to dictate my own schedule. And I hate schedules.
Yeah.
I can't stand them. Like I share a Google Calendar with my wife, but that's just so that we can coordinate all the stuff with the kids and that's my priority is my family life, my spiritual life, and real estate is really just something that I really enjoy, and it enables me to do what I really want to do, which is spend time with my family. So my day to day, honestly, like I'll wake up, I do some self reflective time in the morning, nothing crazy. I'm usually around some friends and peers and stuff like that, and then I'll go to the gym, which I just got back from, and I'll
Okay.
take my sweet old time. And then I'll get home and I'll do stuff like this, or underwrite deals, or talk to buyers and sellers, depending on kind of what's going on. So I'm sure you know as well as I do that this business is very unpredictable. So I end up getting a lot more done half the time when I'm out either driving around or running errands or going to the gym and stuff like that than I would, just sitting in an office. So, which is cool because I have basically ADD and I need to be running around.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because at least a handful of the conversations that we've had have been while you're in the car traveling from place to place.
There
And
you
I
go.
do the same thing. Like, well, I could be listening to the news, which is not helpful for what's going
No,
on in here, or I could be having productive conversations with cool people like Thomas.
there you go.
Yeah. So when I know a little bit, what does a typical kind of deal look like for you?
Mm.
How are they coming onto your plate? Like, tell me about that kind of stuff.
Well, I think it's been an interesting progression. I think I started out kind of like how a lot of people do, with like just throwing money at marketing. And I had VAs and I had a team at one point, and whole cold calling and texting campaign scheme, which did get me some pretty sweet deals actually. But I hate marketing. I can't stand it. It's to me, it's too time consuming, and like I'm a very unorganized person. So it's as many times as I try to fit in that mold, as it doesn't work for me the best.
Yeah.
So I found that the more time that I spent actually helping other people, believe it or not, with just passing on to them kind of what I know about how to structure creative deals. That's pretty much, not pretty much, it is my primary source of lead flow right now. Is like having conversations with you, and then for instance, like I met Briggs, your friend, and we're doing a deal together.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of cool stuff that I definitely had to offer because I was fortunate enough to learn off of guys that have been, and one guy in particular, but a couple for sure, who've been in the business a very long time. Those old school investors that nobody ever heard of and are like quiet killers, dude. Like I mean, do deals in the majority of the United States. So that's another cool thing too. So there's really no restrictions.
You,
Yeah,
it sounds like what you've done is you've learned from some people,
yeah.
and then you realize like doing this whole kind of direct to seller marketing thing, while had some success in it, it doesn't fit your personality. It doesn't fit your core value system of, not having to have a strict schedule and being able to just spend time with the kids and the wife when you're able to do that, and go, well, what am I going to do? Well, I can start giving some of this knowledge to other people and trying to help them out. And then that turned into people like me bringing you, hey, Thomas, I got this deal. Let's look at it. And I want to be a part of it. I want you to be a part of it because you have the knowledge and the experiences. And am I kind of on the right trail there?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think, sometimes I've learned more too, sometimes from people about the way that I don't want to do things because I didn't appreciate being treated that way too. So there was a handful of times where I interacted with other investors who at the end of the day became very apparent that they were just looking out for number one. And it's unfortunate, but that's the way the business is sometimes. There's a lot of sharks out there.
Yeah.
And I get it, I do. I get it, but I didn't appreciate, there was a deal that I brought to a guy that I was paying for a mentorship for, and the way that he expressed how we were going to share this deal turned out to be completely different. And he basically just ended up taking it from me. And like I was like so sour, dude. I'm like, number one, like at the time I was in a position where I was still trying to replace my income.
Okay.
And after like 15 years of police work, dude, like I don't, if you want to use the word driven, like that's probably the most accurate word because I was completely obsessed with replacing that income so that I didn't have to go back to that nonsense. I was so, it was like physically, mentally, and just spiritually draining from every aspect. So
I
when
can only
that
imagine.
de- yeah, when that deal happened and then it got taken from me, I was just like, bro, like you're just now you're slowing down my progress. Like there's almost nothing more that you could have did to me to piss me off at that point
Yeah.
because of how important my time with my family is. So when I started turning around and helping other people, I'm like, well, what's a way that that I can help structure these so that like everybody's learning. Like I'm not just gonna like do the deal and not show you how to do it. Like I'll literally walk you through from A to Z everything that I know. I'll introduce you to the people that I work with. Because let's face it, like the goal, in my opinion, if I'm coming to somebody that has knowledge about something, like whatever it be, like innovation, like I've never done innovation. If I ever decide to do one, I'll probably go to somebody that I trust that does them, and then very happily split the deal in order to learn how to do it.
Yep.
Which, at the end of the day, like the point of me doing that is to not only share, but also I'm very well aware that I'm hopefully going to be able to gain enough knowledge to be able to do it on my own, right? So that's the important part. Another thing is too, it's like taking stuff from people, which I think it's stealing. I'm just gonna throw that out there because it's like the other person invested all this time and energy into whatever they did to locate that deal. There's no reason why you can't structure it so everybody
Right.
gets paid from all aspects.
Yep.
So
I've had a
that's just
couple.
how I did it. And like ever since I've been doing that, like it's pretty cool. It's like honestly, like it is altruistic. And at the end of the day, like everybody ends up winning. And then I get more and more referrals because they're like, yo, Tom does business the right way and he's cool and he'll teach you how to do it and not just like block you out or not have you allow you access to the whole formula or whatever you want to call it. So it's turned out to be really the best way, the coolest way to do it that I can think of. Because honestly, it makes me happy to learn, see other people learn it, and then be able to implement that and do it on their own too. Because everybody has families, right?
Yeah.
Or like loved ones, and like we're not just doing this for the heck of it. Like
Right.
there's a motive behind it, and everybody has their own. But so I think that part has been pretty cool.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've heard Briggs say, and just the sense that I got from you, from our conversations together, is that you're gonna not only help the deal get from contract to close and then even beyond because you're doing a lot of wraps, finding a buyer for it. But
Yeah.
like every step along the way, Briggs is like, oh my gosh, I didn't he showed me how to do this. And Briggs, for you guys listening, he's episode 1 of Network.
Oh, really? I'm going to
Yeah.
go back and listen
Yeah.
to
Oh, so I'm looking forward to it. It's how did you get the whole um process of finding people that needed your help started?
them. I don't know. I don't know if I really always was in a position to help. I think in the beginning, like a lot of us, it's like you're kind of like walking around blind
Mm,
and just feeling your way through the business, right? And meeting all kinds of different people who honestly all have different motives.
right.
So from talking to so many people, it's like maybe I just started to figure out how to narrow down my circle. So my circle now is people that I trust and that I like to talk to and that have good values like me. So it's gotten really small and I like it that way, and now it's kind of cool because I get to allow who I'm going to invite into my world in a way, which is to me, like, again, like, dude, I've turned down deals because I had an argument with a wholesaler one time that I bought a deal off of because I just didn't agree with it. Like the way that the deal was structured, it needed to be restructured twice because of some unknowns. Like one of them was the arrears that he was
Okay.
unaware of, and like a few other things. And I actually told him on the phone. I said, I feel like it needs to be restructured. Like, and I feel like everybody needs to absorb a little bit of the difference here. And the way that he interpreted that was to go back and talk to the seller and basically have them walk away with like pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
I didn't agree with it. It was just like it just didn't sit right in my gut.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, "Look, man," I said, I understand that everybody's got to make money here, but I have no problem walking away from this. Like I'm not comfortable with that setup. So if you're open to having a discussion with that seller and you absorbing a portion of this, then I'll move forward. If not, then I will call it a day. Then I'm fine with that. So he called me back like 30 minutes later. He said, "Okay, I restructured it."
That's
The
awesome.
seller doesn't know. Have the seller had no idea what
Right.
was going on in the background, but they were about to get shorted completely, and like they got kids, and like I met the person. It's like there is a human element to this
Yeah.
that people really need to pay attention to
Yeah.
because people and housing. I mean, you're talking about your basic needs that I can't even imagine being in that position.
Right. Yeah, you definitely have an abundant mindset. Just you could tell from just that one story. Like I'm okay walking away from this. There's gonna be other deals. There's
Yeah.
probably some sitting in your inbox right now that like, yeah, this one's actually better. But,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like that. I see sometimes, cash to seller, $5,
Right.
assignment fee, 25,000. Like, wait a second.
Exactly.
Like, what are we doing
Exactly.
here?
Yeah.
Um, I'm really interested, Thomas, if you could just give a little bit for the listeners, like, because like I said, you're doing a lot of wraps, so you're taking properties down subject to, and then you're putting them in a trust,
Hmm.
and then selling them to a homestead buyer, somebody that's going to go live in the property. Could you just kind of like maybe 2 steps ahead of where I just explained
Yeah, yeah.
it? Yeah.
So the cool part is like using a grantor trust is that actually is no transaction that takes place. So, uh, from what I've been taught, and again, I try to stay open minded because I realize that everybody has their own opinions about using a trust and whether or not it's a land trust and all these arguments you can get in, especially with like more experienced, higher end investors who have their own structures and stuff like that. So, I listen, it works for me. So I love it. And I think from what I understand about it and know about it and the way it's been explained to me and the way I've seen it work is that it is, in my opinion, the safest way to do a transaction for everybody involved. So basically the seller is going to be placing their deed in the trust and then I get pulled in as equitable interest within the trust. Okay. So um the deed is now held in the trust, and then what happens on a wrap is you pull the end buyer into the trust, and what you're doing is you're not actually selling the property. Okay, you're coming to an agreement with that buyer in order to share equitable interest within the trust. So the deed stays in the trust, so you don't have to worry about losing the deed. Okay, so you still control the deed, and that's in the right person's hands, it works. Let's put it that way. So if the God forbid that if the end buyer ever defaults or anything like that in the future, which nobody wants to see happen, then you don't have to go through a formal foreclosure process or anything like that.
They just get
So
booted out of the trust.
right, you get removed from the trust, and if you do have to go to court for it, it's more of an eviction type thing than anything else. So it saves a whole lot of legal crap for that nobody feels like dealing with, and you get to also cut out a lot of middlemen. Like half the time, I don't need to use or do use a title company if I don't have to, if title's clear,
Yeah.
which saves a lot of headache, believe it or not, unless you're working with a title company or closing attorney that's very familiar with this process, which so far to date, I've only had one in Georgia actually.
Okay.
And the lady who I talked to was from where I live, surprisingly enough, but she was the only person I ever talked to when I explained it to her. She's like, "Oh yeah, I know what you're doing." I was like, "Okay."
Huh.
Nobody else does, and it's like a constant back and forth talking to different people trying to get these things to close. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So again, with the wraps and what makes them so cool, in my opinion, is just where I'm at in my business right now. Like I still try to hold properties and I do that. So if it makes sense to me, it's local and the numbers are good, I'll hold it. If it works for a wrap or if it's far away, usually I'll wrap it. And then obviously when you're JVing or splitting deals, like it's pretty cool because either you pool your money together or you use a private money lender, or sometimes I just cover the cost of the entry fee. If I know the numbers work, they work. I know exactly what I should be getting back from my end buyer. So we a lot of times get to split the entry fee, and then you have the monthly cash flow, and then the equity. So I get paid three times rather than I don't understand half the time why these guys are wholesaling them. I get it,
Yeah.
but maybe it's because I know what I know now. Like
Right.
I do understand the principle behind wholesale, and sometimes it does make more sense for sure. But yeah, I just look at them like bricks, man. Like they're bricks. So for every deal maybe I'm adding 500 to $1,000 a month on my net cash flow. I mean, it took me honestly, I closed on my first creative deal a year ago.
Hmm.
I mean, I was in sub two, struggling for the first 8 months trying to close one, throwing all the money in marketing and stuff like that. But when I finally closed, it was in October of last year on my first owner finance deal. So I've done 15 since then.
Wow.
I'm working on 16, 17, and 18 closing right now. So
Very nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty sweet. Income replaced. Like
That's it.
it can't get any better than that. Like
Yeah.
I could literally like if I wanted to, I now it's like you do all the hard work up front and then you collect.
Yeah.
And unless somebody's defaulting or not paying, I mean you have that multiple different streams of income. So it's funny because sometimes it feels like it's not safe coming from like a W-2 mindset.
Yeah.
But if you look at it logistically and you have that many different sources of income, even if one stops paying, you still have those other bunch. Like
Right.
it's way safer.
Yeah.
But it
It is.
doesn't feel that way
Yeah.
sometimes. But yeah, it is. It is.
One of these podcasters that I've been listening to for a long time. He's on like entrepreneurial podcast. His name is Jason Stapleton, and
Yeah.
he talks about having a W-2 is a lot like owning a business where you only have one customer.
Mm.
Like if anything happens with
So
that one customer, you're done.
done.
And that's
Yeah.
something that we
Done.
realized when my wife was working
Yeah.
at she was working for a defense contractor. And when the COVID thing happened and they started mandating vaccines and
Right.
we were on the fence about it, now you're going, well, are we making a decision because we want to stay employed or for our health? Like, what the heck? And we really were facing that down. Like, okay, this is our one employer right now. Like, do we take the vaccine or do we hold out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're fortunate it ended up kind of getting swept under the table. Um, so as far as the only question I have here, because I think I understand it, is the title is just held in trust. Like the Mr. Seller is still on the title. Nothing happens with the title. The trust becomes like almost an escrow of the title.
So the seller the deed the deed or title, right? The name changes.
Okay.
So it goes from Mr. and Mrs. Seller into 123 Main Street Trust.
That's okay. And is that
And
like a
then
quick claim?
similar to, yeah.
Okay.
So then within that trust itself is where it's like kind of an umbrella. So you have the trust, and then underneath that is where the seller is still maintaining a very small percentage of equitable interest within there. And that's to protect against the due on sale clause, right? So you got to be careful when you're swapping the insurance out too. It's the same process as everybody else would use, where the trust would be on the insurance swap. The name would be on there of the trust, and the
Okay.
seller would still be on there too.
Yeah.
So, and then basically now you have like it's almost like a vehicle, right? So the trust is the vehicle. The deed gets put into the vehicle, and then you do whatever you want with the vehicle, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, but again, the deed stays in that trust, or the title stays in that trust until the trust is dissolved. So when that end buyer either refinances, sells the property, or pays it off in entirety, basically once those underlying terms are satisfied, at that point the trust is dissolved, and then the title gets transferred
Yeah.
to whoever, right?
Okay.
So it's not unlike when you go to buy a car and you get financing for the car. So when you
Have
get
you
financing for the car, when do you get the title?
right, yeah, after you
When you
yeah,
when
yeah,
you
yeah.
pay the loan off, right?
Have you
Same
had
thing.
any pushback from end buyers on the trust thing? Like, I thought I was going to own the property, anything like that, or you're just upfront with them
Right.
on those first calls and, you know,
I'm upfront with everybody, so I explain to them exactly how it works. I'll use simple terminology, and then if they want to expand, I'll literally walk them through the whole process. And I've had very meticulous buyers of like the engineer mindset who have 800 credit scores who want to know how this works, and I've walked them through it. And most of the time they're pretty impressed with the structure of it, which it is kind of cool.
yeah,
And at the end of the day, I don't think anybody can argue with, wanting to be safe. And I think when they understand that this is meant to protect not only them, but me, right? And the transaction itself, it's kind of hard to argue with.
right.
But you never know what you're going to get. So what I noticed is like definitely like area dependent. Like when you go down south, like a lot of people know what this is,
Okay.
or if they're not familiar with the setup itself, they're very familiar with the concept of subject to and seller finance. Where when I do deals up in the Northeast corridor around me, like outside of Philly or in Delaware, it's very uncommon.
Hmm.
So having to explain that, it can be kind of tiring. And sometimes more often than not up in the Northeast, like you'll get your buyer that's like, I'm going to bring this to my attorney. And
Okay.
the one thing I will say to them is like, the one thing I will say is I'm hoping that your attorney is familiar with this specific process, because not all attorneys are going to be, kind of, you know, up to par on what this is. A lot of them have no idea.
Yeah.
So,
It's the
yeah.
same for just subject to in general for a
Yeah,
lot of the
it
time. Like
is.
they don't, it's, 10%, 15%. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to, we're getting short here on time a little bit, Thomas. I wanted to pick your brain a little bit because you mentioned before we jumped on the call that you're looking to maybe do some sort of mentorship for first responders, um, to help them kind of get into the investment mindset. Like, I know it's not happening in the immediate, but like, what are you kind of foreseeing taking place there?
So the cool thing is it is happening in the immediate.
Oh, okay.
And the reason is because I spent so much time overthinking it over the past couple months
Hmm.
that I just decided to start doing it.
Okay.
So I just made a logo up, a business name, and there's going to be a website built and stuff like that. I haven't really figured out a lot of it yet, but that's okay. Like I'll
Yeah.
take it step by step. But really, I think for me, the important thing is to make sure that I'm going in it with the right motives. So, um, the hardest part I think for me is struggling with like, accepting payment for teaching people. It's it's not a real big thing for me. I have a hard time with it for some reason, but at the end of the day, like when I talked to another mentor of mine, he said, "Well, how valuable is your time, compared to what you could be spending it with, with your family and stuff like that." And that's when it kind of started to make more sense. And the other thing is like there's certain ways that I want to do it, and I've met with other guys and like marketing, masters that want to turn it into like a crazy, thing with like 100+ students. I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I get that it's gonna maybe not make as much money, but that's not the point of what I'm doing.
Right.
So my point is that I'd like to be able to filter people so that not everybody gets in. Like you're gonna have to have the right mindset first of all, right? Um, I'm gonna have to probably like working with you because it's gonna be more of a shadow type thing where I'm walking people through specific deals. It's gonna be a lot of odd hours and phone calls and stuff like that. Because let's face it, like you can't funnel this business into like a time slot.
Right. Yeah.
Like the more that I think about it, it's got to be pretty open. So whether that gets changed in the future, I have no idea. But I'm kind of just gonna start with like a couple guys and like or girls, and I'll interview them and make sure that we're on the same page with things. And I think at that point, to me, it becomes more valuable. Now I know that the time that I'm going to pour into that is to really make sure that they're getting what they want and need out of it, right? Not just like, yeah, sure, I'll take your money, and then you'll get a
Yeah. Here's
bullshit
10
SOP
Kajabi's.
checklist.
Yeah.
Right, and like here's some paperwork. Like that's not how you learn. Like, and every deal is going to be different. So you're gonna. It's really more of like a critical thinking mentorship than anything else because I will say that like every deal is completely
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. They
Completely
all have
different.
like the same pieces, but the way
Now.
you put the pieces together, just like,
Hmm.
yeah. Well, that's cool, man. I'm interested to watch this unfold, and maybe we'll have you on for like episode 35 or something like that,
Cool.
6 months from now, and we could talk more about that. I do have a couple. I think we're just gonna do one, so I'm gonna let you pick
You got it.
out of the one. We had, what's your biggest life lesson and how did you learn it? And then what would you want to be remembered for?
Whew, man. I'll go with the second one. I think
Okay.
that's
So like
um
once this, your time here on this earth is done,
right.
you've put all the pieces together. Um, what legacy are you leaving behind? What are people remembering about Thomas?
Oh man, I mean I think really that I hope that I can stay true to my values and people will know that I'm a good person that's really trying to help at the end of the day. I mean, like, I raise my kids to be loving people and caring people. And, you know, we're not going to be able to bring any of this shit with us anyway.
No.
Even, even if I amass like 5,000 doors, right? Like, are my kids going to want that? I don't know. Like, is it going to matter to them at the end of the day? Like, if I'm never there
Right.
or like spending time with them, like they don't remember things, they remember experiences, and
Yeah.
that's how they learn. So for me, like I like to really look at that. Like my kids and my family and my wife are like by far the most important thing. So time
Yeah.
is is the most valuable thing in the world to
Yeah.
me, for sure.
That's
So
that's something that's not just you, drawn me to you, but drawn me to the other people that I feel like are in my little circle of friends and, you know, colleagues that
mhm.
I could go learn what you're doing from somebody else, right?
Yeah,
But it's the values and the system, the beliefs and all that that kind of align and make a good working relationship, friendship, partnership, for our lives. So I feel the
yeah,
same exact way, man. I do what I do so I can not do what I do, and
yeah,
be with them,
with you,
It's been a
bro.
pleasure. It's
Yeah.
always a pleasure talking with you. I wanted to, before we go, if somebody had a deal that they wanted to bring to you to learn how to structure it, If they needed some help underwriting, or maybe somebody out there is interested in the mentorship, the first responder mentorship, how do we reach out to you? What's the best way to get a hold of you? And I'll learn about that.
Probably either through email or Instagram, most likely.
Okay.
I don't know if you're going to provide that or you want me.
I will put your email, the one that I have, and your Instagram, which we're not actually friends yet on Instagram, but I will add you
To
and
do
add
that.
that to the description. Yeah. Um, and yeah, and we'll go from there. Any parting words?
I think this is cool. I mean, I appreciate the fact that you even asked me to chat, and I really this is definitely it doesn't feel like work for me. So
Yeah.
hopefully,
Yeah.
anybody that's listening and wants to learn how to enjoy life without it feeling like work, I think if you're into this type of a vehicle, I guess you could call it, like real estate, right, or
Yeah.
whatever. I don't know. Nathaniel's a great person to talk to. I'll be glad to help. And
Appreciate
there,
that.
there are other people too. So
I
you got
think
to
so.
find the right people, man.
Yep.
That's it,
Find the
I
right
think.
fit, your
Yeah.
personalities line up, and your
Yeah.
values and stuff line up. There's plenty of people out there we can learn this stuff from, but it's about
Yep.
making relationships and doing fun stuff together. Well, it was a
There you
pleasure,
go.
man.
All right, bro.